Hi, welcome to The Lawyer Show. I'm Jeremy Rosenthal, your lawyer. And on The Lawyer Show, it's just a show about lawyers. And we talk about law and being lawyers. And it's just kind of water cooler talk that we can invite everybody into our water cooler and talk about the law. Yeah. So anyway, today I've got a guest today who is a very, very, very good friend of mine, and this is a lawyer who I practiced with years and years and years ago. Probably I remember working at a law firm with Adam around the year 2001, maybe 2002, and I remember talking to Adam back then and saying, in the year 2020, let's do a podcast.
That's great, yeah.
But let's do it. I was thinking let's go on iTunes, and or on Facebook, and let's have a Facebook. Well, let's have a Facebook Live, and just kind of do this. And so, sure enough, 19 years later, we made it happen. So anyway, Adam Reed is a lawyer. His law firm is called Reed Carter. And I'm going to let Adam talk about himself because I'm not as familiar with Adam as Adam is with Adam. Shoot, Adam, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Appreciate that. So, yeah, it's been 15 years, something like that, since we worked together.
At least. I got drummed out. My attention span wasn't big enough.
But look, you're a big time criminal defense lawyer up in Collin County now.
This is true. This is true. But yes, so I remember at this insurance defense firm, I told you, I tricked you into coming on this show, telling you it was going to be all about you.
Right.
You knew better.
Oh, absolutely.
But so at this law firm, I remember, we did kind of higher brow insurance defense, beyond, car accidents, fender benders, we're talking, dead people type things, licenses getting lost. And
right.
I remember having they would come to me with hey, Jeremy, here's the situation. And I would come up with this awesome plan of how we're going to be aggressive and how we're just going to take it to the other side. And I would spend hours just with these magnificent plots that I hatched in my head, and I come back and they're like, no, that's expensive, Jeremy. No, just stick to your fantasy football.
That's true.
That's what
you were really good at. Yeah. Well,
maybe. I drafted guys who were on the IR. But let's talk about you, Adam.
Yeah.
Let's get to your background because you're the guest today.
Well,
so
I appreciate that.
And we can start off with Mesquite.
With Mesquite, I am a proud graduate of Mesquite High School, Skeeter. I think only one of two schools in the entire state of Texas that has an insect as its mascot.
What's the other one? Yellow Jackets?
Yellow Jackets is, I think, the other one, yeah. And there may be a wasp in there somewhere around the way. But, yeah, grew up here, went to Austin College in Sherman, and not in Austin, as some people think. And then
the Kangaroos.
The Kangaroos, the proud fighting Kangaroos. And then went to law school at Tech, and guns up. And you're a proud Tech graduate, right?
I went to undergrad at Texas Tech, yeah.
So anyway, went to law school there, and then I liked West Texas. I liked West Texas a lot, and I wanted to. When I graduated law school, I've always wanted to be a litigator, and when I graduated law school, I wanted to get in the courtroom. And how was I going to do that? And so when I had been at Austin College, I had the opportunity to do an internship at the Grayson County Attorney's Office, and from there enjoyed criminal law, and so decided that I was going to go. I thought the best opportunity to be in the courtroom would be to do that, be in the prosecutor's office. So I found a job. I looked around. I was determined to be in a smaller town because I figured that'd give me an opportunity to get in the courthouse immediately. And so
they didn't tell you that by getting at a county this size, you're also in charge of the coffee. You're probably frisking people down at the door. Yeah.
Well, not quite. We had a wand, but it was
okay.
no frisking.
When you file stamp things in those counties, the lights flicker.
Yeah.
in the whole building.
Boy, I forgot about file stamping. That was
Yes.
You'd go in there, you know. Yeah. So anyway, So I there was a job posting for the 84th District Attorney's Office, and the 84th Judicial District covers Hutchinson and Hansford counties. For those of you who don't know where that is, that's Stinnett is the county seat of Hutchinson County. The biggest town in Hutchinson County is Borger, and then Hansford County's county seat is Hansford. I mean, Spearman. Excuse me.
They all know this.
Right.
I mean, this is JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network, and you can catch JP, Kathy, and the Crew 7:30 to 9 Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and JP, Kathy, and the Crew Nation, I promise you, knows where.
I'm sure they do.
What was it called again?
The 84th Judicial District, or Borger, Texas.
Yeah, that.
Yes, absolutely, because they reach out there.
And your fantasy team, I have to.
Yeah.
I'm going to fast forward just a touch.
Yes.
Because I do want to talk about Borger and I do want to talk about small towns. But your fantasy team was the Borger Kings.
If that's correct, we were the Borger Kings my first year there, and doing fantasy football. And by the way, I think we played fantasy football in the same league twice, and I believe those are the only 2 years I ever won it. So I think there's a pattern there. Anyway, well, so I moved to, there's a job posting for Borger, and they said they want an assistant district attorney, and I went up and interviewed and got an offered a job on the spot. And I will confess to you, I had never heard of Borger. Never been there before, and was like, okay. And so packed up my stuff and moved up north. And so Borger's about 45 minutes northeast of Amarillo. And it's a great town, great people, wonderful. The people were awesome. But you know, here I am coming from Mesquite, Dallas area, to Borger, which is the largest city in Hutchinson County, which is about, the city had about 15,000 people. So, and it brought a prop to show you.
Yes, let's see, please.
Here's my prop.
Exhibit A.
Right here. This is the Borger News Herald. And see, I made the front page right there. See? Yeah. That's how excited everyone was that I was coming to Borger.
So, assistant district attorney, what does it say?
Says,
adjust to small town life.
Assistant district attorney adjust to small town life.
Did you adjust to small town life? And did they know you were from Mesquite?
They did know I was from Mesquite.
And they hired you anyway.
And they hired me anyway. Yeah.
You were a survivor of the mean streets of Mesquite.
I was. I had many mosquito bites from the skeeters, but it was. How do I put it? It was from a lawyer standpoint, it was a great place to learn how to practice law. It was great. There were maybe 20 lawyers in town.
Okay.
We all knew each other. So you'd go down to the courthouse, you'd have a hearing, there'd be 20 lawyers. There's two district courts there. One was the court of general jurisdiction, the other one was just family law. And so you'd go down there and you do pleas and whatever with people, and then everybody, judge, bailiff, court reporter, every defense lawyer, all the prosecutors, we'd all go down to the Dairy Queen.
Man. So
great.
have you ever heard the joke, that so there's a lawyer in a small West Texas town, and he's just starving, right? And then another lawyer, I'm butchering this is a family program. They've made that clear to me. The JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network.
Glad you told me that. I better make a note of that. Okay.
They butchered. They just. I'm butchering this joke, but the joke goes that the one lawyer was starving, and he was starving until a second lawyer moved in town, and they both got rich. That's the gist of it.
That's about the truth. Laugh track. How about that?
No, that was legit. That wasn't a laugh track. That's actually people on Facebook
That's right.
laughing at us again.
The Lawyer Show is filmed before a live studio audience.
Again, yes. So man,
excellent.
we're
Ooh.
That was
all right. That's the way to drive traffic right there.
Man, who knew?
Get the hi hat. It was great. Borger was great. It was, and for the lawyers watching, everyone I tell this to kind of looks at me like, what? But I never signed a Rule 11 agreement when I was there. I never signed. I mean, everything was handshake. So you knew, because everybody knew they were going to see each other.
Okay.
Over and over and over again.
So let's interpret this for the JP, Kathy, and the Crew Nation, and all of our loyal listeners.
Yes.
So when you're talking about a Rule 11 agreement, what you're saying is, in a civil case where two parties are kind of having to make a deal, basically,
Right.
about how the case is proceeding procedurally.
Right.
Lawyers enter into what's called a Rule 11 agreement, which basically says, and tell me if I'm wrong, because again, I only do phenomenal work in criminal cases. And that wasn't a joke. That's true. That wasn't a joke.
All right.
The point of the lawyer show is why people should hire me and Adam.
That's true.
That's why we're so.
Nice.
There it is. Okay, so so a Rule 11 agreement is basically when the parties are saying, look, we got a side deal about how this case is going to proceed, right? And a settlement can be a Rule 11.
Yeah, it's
a Rule
11 agreement is taken from Texas Rules of Civil Procedure 11, which says that two parties may memorialize an agreement about anything. It can be about extension of a deadline, a settlement, anything, and then that's enforceable. You file it with the court, and you can enforce it. And it's a standard procedure. No, I mean, it's advised to do that. But
what you're saying is that everybody's handshake was good.
Yeah, and not to say that it's not here, but it's you knew that if something went wrong, you talked it out, because you knew if something went wrong and there was a dispute, you had to see each other again.
Right.
So it was a very collegial kind of place, and it was great. And as a young lawyer, you never felt like that you were at a disadvantage or you were being taken advantage of, and the judiciary,
and if you did, you sure didn't find out about it until after Dairy Queen.
You did not find it, specifically after the peanut parfait. Yeah, yeah. But no, it was great. Thank you. I got some laughter out of that. Thank you, studio audience. So anyway, yeah, it was great. It was a great place to practice law, and I learned a lot about it. But not such a great place to be when you are 20-something,
and
29 single. Yeah, and so at that point, it's like
it was the party scene drove you out.
The party scene drove me out. Well, the problem. So I did prosecution for a year and a half, and then after that time period, I went to criminal defense. I went to work. There was a gentleman in town. His name was Gene Compton, and great lawyer. And Gene was retirement age. He was getting ready to get out, and I'd known Gene, and Gene offered me his law firm. Said I want to kind of dial back, so I'm interested in having you come in and take over. And it was a great opportunity, and I'm very thankful for that. And so we went in, and it was criminal defense, family law, wills and probate, a little bit of PI, a little bit of contract. It was mostly criminal and family, and so that's what I did for the next little bit there, and again was great, and would have stayed. I think stayed there for 4 years, I think, something like that, and then at some point went, well,
yeah.
I mean, especially when I was doing divorce work, because you would go there was two places to go out in Borger. It was like the country club, and then like a burger joint, and a couple other places. The Dairy Queen, yeah. And so the Dairy Queen was there was a Dairy Queen in Borger, but this one we went to was in Stinnett, which is like 2,000 people. Great town, and I was the city attorney there too, so that's great. But anyway, we ended up, you'd go to the whatever restaurant or whatever, and you'd look over and realize that when you did a lot of divorce work, and I did a lot. About half of the people in the restaurant I had either represented, and the other half I had represented their spouses. So I was like, yeah, I may have sullied the dating pool here.
So I'm going to tell a quick war story here.
Yeah,
because the lawyer show is about
absolutely
about war stories. So I remember that just kind of makes me think of a time when I was a prosecutor in Collin County. And I left the DA's office to go be a defense lawyer. And one of the very first cases I tried out of the block was an assault where it was a bunch of teenagers from two kind of from two rural areas that kind of met in a field and they just got it on, and there was in a fighting.
Right,
sense.
I understand what you meant. Yeah. 'Cause it's a family show.
Right. Yeah. Violence is fine.
That's right,
We're not talking about anything
that's fine. Yeah.
indecent or improper here.
Absolutely.
Just good old fashioned,
Fisticuffs.
right? And so, and there were in the fight, there were guys, there were girls, and there was, so anyway, naturally I won the trial. It was a not guilty.
Of course. Not
I wouldn't tell this story. Yeah. I wouldn't tell this story if it wasn't. So,
Right.
So about 3 weeks later, I'm getting my car washed. And this is in McKinney, and this is, circa 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And there's a 19-year-old who's like, she's taking the orders of everybody who's getting their car washed. And I'm like, man, she looks familiar. I'm like, she looks familiar.
Yeah.
And I'm, 27? I don't know what I was at this, how old I was, but I'm like, there's no 19-year-olds. I shouldn't know any
Right.
I didn't grow up here.
Right.
This can't be a family friend. I mean, I just don't know who this was. And so about 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, this is
You realize what it was.
this is the victim who I drilled on the stand about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so we ducked down in our car and we put it in reverse.
Yeah.
We put it in reverse, and then we got out of there.
You got sulked away.
We slunk away.
Well, I had something kind of similar happen to me like that when I was in Borger. I represented a fella in a child custody deal, and it was a deal where he had filed for possession of the children, and it was a real sad deal. And the mom, who unfortunately had the allegation was had a mental illness. Mm-hmm. She was representing herself, and we managed to obtain an order to acquire possession of the children. And in the courthouse, after we were done in the courtroom, the judge ordered the children's possession to be transferred to the dad, our client. She stands up in the middle of the courthouse, and she says, "I'm going to get you." She points at the judge. "I'm going to get you," at the bailiff. "I'm going to get you," the court reporter. And then she looks at me. "I'm going to especially get you." And I'm thinking, well, okay. And at this point, I'm like, all right, I've had enough people threaten me that I'm not doing this. I'm not worried about it. And then about a week later, there's a picture of her in the Borger News Herald where she had shot like a 10-point buck from I don't know how far, and it was this incredible shot. And I'm just like, okay.
That was so. That brings me to your next dangerous mission.
Yes.
So let's talk about going from Borger to the big tall buildings of downtown Dallas.
Big time.
Because when you're defending insurance companies, there's just a lot less death threats.
There's a whole lot less death threats. Yeah.
But talk about, okay, so there was the party scene in Borger wasn't cutting it for you.
Right.
Why else did and was Dallas your next stop? Go ahead and talk about what happened after Borger.
Yeah. So my family's here. I grew up here. My family was all here. I had been in Borger for 4 years, and it was I sort of had a choice at that point. This was in 2000. This was actually August of 2001. Well, I made the decision kind of earlier that year, but anyway, we. I decided to move because I wanted to do something different. I wanted to get back home. It was time for me to get back home. It was just a timing thing, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I wanted to continue to do litigation. I put resumes out there and got an interview with our former firm. And the guy that I interviewed with, the first thing he says to me is, who ended up being my supervising partner, first thing he says is, "You're from Borger?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So am I." And so come to find out, like, the judges all knew him. He had, and so anyway, and he ended up being it still is a mentor, and it was a great experience. So, but yeah, I mean, the transition wasn't all that bad. And primarily because, again, I've been fortunate to work with some good people. I such as yourself, I had the opportunity to work with some very good people, very a very collegial kind of atmosphere, and it was and it was fun. It was fun, challenging work. We were representing. I was primarily representing trucking companies. Later on, I started representing bars and nightclubs, and it was. I had some great opportunities to do certain things there, and great war stories out of that as well.
So yeah, let's so again, war stories. You posted on Facebook this morning. Something that we really have to get into, and your statement was, why should exotic dancers not wear jewelry?
I knew that would intrigue you.
But I think you're listening to JP, Kathy, and the crew. You can hear JP Network. You can hear JP, Kathy, and the crew between 7:30 and 9, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But I think that our listeners really want to hear more about subrogation.
I'm sure they do. Well, let me talk to you about the insurance contract. And no, they don't.
Well, and
I don't want to hear about subrogation.
That's what I threaten my daughter with. I when I start talking lawyer stuff, and just to like intentionally get her to tune out. Very easy to do. I say, well, let's talk about insurance subrogation, and I can, come to your class and talk about that. And let's talk about Part A coverages in a commercial general liability. See, you did a lot more of it. See, you can. you're better at this. Okay, but part of your at Reed Carter,
yes,
one of your areas of practice is nightclubs.
Yeah, that's right.
And so why should What legal hazards are there for your typical exotic dancer who wants to wear jewelry? What can possibly go wrong there?
Well, a whole lot, but specifically I was referring to a case I handled very early on. I started doing very early on in the process of handling nightclub work. So I represented a club who it was a gentleman's club, and they run it. Those businesses run into issues, not only regulatory issues with sexually oriented businesses and those kind of things, but they also run into issues like premises liability, where somebody falls down, or dram shop liability, where somebody allegedly drinks too much or they've been overserved. This particular case was was really different. So there was a young lady who worked for our club, my client. And the club had a policy that the dancers were to not wear jewelry on stage, right? But she had a ring that she wanted to wear on stage. And as most gentlemen's clubs have, they have a pole in the middle of the stage.
Describe that for me, because I don't know what a gentleman's club looks like.
No, and I had to go do an inspection myself.
Oh my God, that must have been terrible.
Well, it was horrible. So there was yeah. So it was It's a tall brass pole, right? And this one was fixed. This one's fixed from stage up to the ceiling.
Okay.
And so this particular pole had a small brass brad or screw at the top of it. So the way it was mounted to the ceiling was it had this sort of pipe. Anyway, there was a little bump there. And so this young lady, businesswoman, would climb up the pole, slide down the pole, whatever.
Contract labor,
absolutely. And so anyway, at some point, despite being told, hey, you're going too far up the pole, and being told, hey, don't wear jewelry, she's sliding down the pole. Once she gets way up to the top of the pole, and she decides to slide down the pole. But unfortunately, this young lady decided to wear that ring that day.
I see this coming. Did we lose a finger?
We lost a finger.
Oh, no.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to get too graphic for your viewers, but the finger was found on the stage. So.
Oh, Lord. Well, again,
Well, let me.
If there's anything objectionable about this story, it's the sexual overtones. The violence is perfectly fine.
Violence is fine. Yes, absolutely.
But
the interesting thing about this is she was a very hard worker, because About 4 weeks later, she returned to work.
Man, that's employee of the month.
I'm
stuff.
telling you, she was a hard worker.
We talk about America. We talk about our values here. We talk about people,
right?
Who, and we kind of think that younger folks and that that they're just not cutting it the way that they used to. But stories like that inspire.
It's very interesting. So
she got right back on, and so she was your client.
No. I was representing.
I was
representing the club.
Okay.
And the case did get resolved. So, but she was making a claim. It was kind of a workplace premises kind of deal. So, I mean, in all seriousness, though, is it is important for these places for any business, and especially a business where it's alcohol's being served, or a business in which there's activity like dancing or whatever, to check the premises to make sure that those hazards are gone, because people will find those. So, but no, my current practice is I do bars and nightclubs. I represent them, and then I do represent some. I still have some business doing trucking work, and then actually I do have a plaintiff's personal injury practice as well. So I do the flip side of that some as well, and very blessed to have good clients all around.
So talk a little bit about so going back to the bigger firm.
Yes.
Talk a little more about that. That was all insurance. Was that all trucking?
It was all. It was almost all trucking until at some point, I think about 2008, 2009, I started doing the nightclub work. It was a referral from somebody. It was an insurance company, needed a new counsel. They were new in Texas. So, and then I had some kind of on-off things. For example, I represented I will just call them a major food company in a case in which it was a pro se plaintiff representing himself, who alleged that he found a nail in a package of sandwich meat that he had bought at like Sam's or something. And so we ended up we represented the client, and it was up in Collin County. I think I got a defense verdict in about 2 minutes.
That sounds like Collin County.
Absolutely. At some point, the judge had told him there were certain things. Told this plaintiff there's certain things you can't say, and so at some point he's in his jury argument, and I stand up. He's saying some of those things, and I object. And the judge says, "I'm not going to tell you again. Don't tell him these things." And then the plaintiff turns around to the jury and says, "Well, there's a reason why they don't want me to tell you these things," which was a lot of fun. But anyway, the interesting thing about that guy, I handled 4 products liability cases while I was at the firm. One of them involved a very large Canadian manufacturer of radiant insulation. And that was a big case. The other 3 products liability cases, one was the nail, one was a suit against our trucking company for idling and emitting gas fumes into the air, thereby causing the plaintiff to have a headache. And another one was not really a products case, but it was one in which the plaintiff alleged that he went to go get a car, and that we had checked his credit without his permission, and thereby was representing the car dealership, thereby causing his credit to be reduced. And the interesting thing is, all 3 of those were the same plaintiff. They were the guy with the ham sued on the gas. He was a perpetual
boy, and that's kind of random that they all landed.
It did.
All kind of landing with you.
It was kind of fun too. The second case I got, it had been about a year after the ham case, and I call him up.
You're like, "Hey, it's me again."
And I said, I did, exactly. I said, "Mr." and I won't use his name, but I'll say, "Mr. X, do you remember me?" And he goes, "I don't remember you. Who are you?" And I said, "Well, Mr. X, do you remember your lawsuit against XYZ Food Company?"
Did you say which?
Yeah,
you say which one?
No. He goes,
which?
He goes, "Yeah." I go, "I was the lawyer," and he goes, "Oh, hell. All right." And he says, I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, what do you want to do with the case?" And I said, "Nothing." And he goes, all right, I'll dismiss you.
Oh, man.
That was fun. So, but yeah, so, got to do a little bit of that, but mostly did trucking and nightclub work. So.
Okay, so let's take the audience through this, because I want to make sure that they understand kind of how insurance litigation works.
Okay.
Because it can be pretty complicated, and I don't think a lot of people understand it. So let's say, for argument's sake, that let's take the nightclub dancer case.
Okay.
Okay. So she gets an injury, right?
Right.
She's at work. She's up the pole. She's told not to do it. She gets hurt. And she's going to go, typically, I'm assuming she had counsel on a case like that.
She did, yeah.
A lost finger is going to, I think a lot of lawyers would bite on that
Absolutely.
And so she goes to a lawyer who's probably going to work on what we call contingency.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That's where the lawyer doesn't get paid unless they win.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
But the lawyer is underwriting the case, and the lawyer thinks, I'm probably going to win some money here.
One would hope.
So
he's hoping.
He's
He or
hoping.
she's hoping.
They're hoping that this case is clear cut enough that there's damages that are worth it, to where if I represent this human, I'll come out with some money here.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we contrast that to the other fella, right, the guy, the frivolous litigant who just files anything and everything, right?
Right.
If he's shopping his cases to lawyers, probably any lawyer he goes to is probably telling him no.
Probably so.
Yeah. Because lawyers, we're greedy and selfish and want to capitalize on people's suffering, but even there's really no lawyers out there who, if you walk into their office and you say, I want to sue somebody over a headache, they're probably not going to take that on a contingency.
Probably not.
You would hope.
Yeah.
So that's the dynamic back to the dancer on her side of the equation, right?
That's right.
So let's say that lawyer files a suit against the nightclub, assuming that they're the ones that are being sued here because they got the money, you would think, right?
Right.
So the nightclub then, and just so our viewers understand this, the nightclub then turns around and they go, well, don't we have insurance for this?
Right.
Okay,
right.
And they say, sure enough, we do, and they call their insurance carrier.
They'll call their carrier. Most of the time, they just call their broker.
Okay.
Or agent.
They call whoever they know.
Right.
And then what happens is the insurance company has a duty to defend them.
Yes.
Okay. Talk to the audience about the duty to defend and what that means.
Okay. So under an insurance contract, there are two duties: duty to defend and duty to indemnify. So your duty to defend says if you've done everything, if you're the insured under the policy and you're entitled to insurance company coverage, the insurance company has a duty to hire an attorney to represent your interests. It's a little bit of, and that attorney is the insured's attorney. It's not the insurance company's attorney.
Right.
That attorney cannot advise or should not advise the insured, the company, the
carrier.
The carrier. I mean, that lawyer stays out of anything about coverage or anything like that. But what they do is, under an insurance contract, the duty to defend means you hire a lawyer for the insured. Okay, the person or the company that has the insurance. They, in turn, the insurance company also has the right to direct the defense and has the right to settle the case. And so we get, you do get a lot of our clients on our insurance defense side who do get sometimes frustrated by that. But and you give input, you talk to the insurance company, you say, this is what we want the client to do, or what the client says, this is what we want the insurance company to do. And sometimes you have to say to the client, the insurance company has a right under the policy, or is asserted right under the policy, settle the case, resolve the case, whatever. So that's what the duty to defend. So what your viewers may maybe
our viewers,
excuse me, maybe most familiar with is like if they're in a car wreck.
Right.
Okay. So if they're in a car wreck and they've got whatever insurance carrier, that insurance carrier will hire an attorney, or sometimes they have attorneys on staff who will then represent, if they get sued, will represent them. And their duty is it's just like you hired them yourselves, just the insurance company pays for them.
Yeah, and that sets up a really an intricate is probably the best way I can put it, dynamic, because you've got, and back to the dancer scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the nightclub on one end,
Mm-hmm.
their insurance company on another end,
Right.
and let's say the nightclub, let's say this nightclub, and I don't think there's any nightclubs out there like this, and I'm sure that the JP, Kathy, and the crew, who you can see JP, Kathy, and the crew between 7:30 and 9, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on the JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. You're watching The Lawyer Show between 12 and 1 every Thursday. But they're very familiar with nightclubs, I'm sure.
Right.
But let's say for argument's sake that this nightclub is a savory joint, right? Or a not so savory joint.
Okay.
Which would it be? You know what I mean?
Unsavory, yeah.
Unsavory,
yes.
unsavory, right?
Yes.
So this place is not such a, and they're afraid that, oh my God, we're going to have some lawyers in here, we're going to have people doing interviews, and we're going to have this and that, and we don't want them to know that we cheat on our taxes, right? And so we just want this thing to go away, pay her whatever she wants, and make it go away, right? That can sometimes be the attitude, but what you're saying is, so the viewers understand, you've got the nightclub here. You've got the insurance company here. The insurance company and the nightclub is just telling the insurance, just pay her whatever she wants. She's a great dancer. We like keeping her.
Right.
Right. And just pay her. But the insurance company can go, whoa. They're asking for, $2.5 million. We're not going to do that.
Right.
And so, but that puts the lawyer in a bit of an odd spot too, because the lawyer represents the club.
That's right. And your duty of loyalty is to the club. And you report things to the carrier, the insurance carrier. You tell the insurance carrier what's going on. Your duty of loyalty is to the club. But there are certain things that, even though your duty of loyalty is to the club, there is a conflict of interest that exists there when it comes to, and we've had these situations, where it's unfortunately, our clients and the their insurers are usually always aligned. I've never had a situation where they're not, but you can't have a scenario where that happens. And when that happens, my advice to lawyers who are involved in that is paper it up, write it up, report that this is what the client wants to have happen, and then advise the client separately. Probably not copying the insurance carrier on that because of your duty of loyalty. Copy the client and say, I've passed on your message on to the insurer. You may have rights and obligations under the insurance policy I can't advise you about, and I would recommend that you get separate counsel.
Okay, and I'll tell you, kind of from our standpoint in criminal law, because we do get, every now and again, we do get dragged into a bit of a situation on these types of cases, not necessarily like this, but say for example, somebody, and this is a common, this happens quite a bit. Unfortunately, people will come into my office and they'll say, Jeremy, I was in some kind of a car accident 2 or 3 nights ago, and I don't really remember what happened, maybe drinking, maybe not drinking, and I've got a detective calling me now. And I've got an insurance company calling me now. And so the issue is, everything that client's told me is subject to the attorney-client privilege. The state can't prove up a criminal action because they don't know my client's identity. Now, they know who he is. If they got a license plate or somebody took a picture, they know the car and they can trace it back, and they know damn sure who it was.
Right.
But legally, there's no evidence that they can come to court and prove it up with. So it's my job to make sure that he doesn't get, it's my job to make sure that the state doesn't acquire any evidence that they could legally identify him.
Right.
And so what will happen is we'll get the insurance companies on the phone who want to just settle this claim, and then we have to step in. The lawyer does, and I'm telling the carrier, just pay it, just pay the damn ticket. Whatever these people want, pay it. because I don't want my guy to go to a deposition where the other driver says, that's the driver.
Right.
That's the guy who hit me, because bang, now we can get prosecuted. And so it's always a real tricky, and I've never had it come to blows necessarily, and I've never had it kind of go that way. But you've practiced both criminal and insurance law, and man, it can get real tricky.
It can get real tricky, and especially when you have situations like.
And this is why clients have to pay really high fees.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, especially in our trucking cases too. I mean, we've had situations, we don't have any now, but I've had situations in the past where, our driver gets prosecuted for criminally negligent homicide, and in that situation, it's you're in sort of an awkward position because you're defending the driver who's entitled. At least the insurance company's made a decision, is entitled to a defense. So you're defending the driver on the civil case. You're working alongside the criminal lawyer, and you have to say to, opposing counsel in the civil case, I'm sorry, my guy can't give a deposition. He's got a Fifth Amendment right. And unlike in criminal law, where that Fifth Amendment, that invocation of the Fifth Amendment is not admissible, in civil case it is. So a lot of times what people will do, and I've had this happen, where you go down to the jail, and there's a guy in his orange jumpsuit, and I don't know, is it orange in Collin County, or is it black and white stripe?
Depends on if you're working.
Okay.
If you're peeling, I think they've got reds if you're working, if you're an inmate worker. Although with the pandemic, it's been, they don't want lawyers out there, so we're doing everything kind of virtually. Green means you're bad news.
Got it. Okay, so but you
just don't want to work.
Right.
Bad news.
But you take a deposition. But they go down the jailhouse, and pre-COVID days, and you're in a jumpsuit of various colors, and you say, Mr. Smith, did you in fact strike the vehicle of my for my client? And the response is, I respectfully decline to answer that question on the grounds it might incriminate me. And that is, it's bad. I mean, juries will see that and go, but there's nothing. But you realize that that guy's constitutional rights at that point kind of trump it all. So
and so because I've been the lawyer, we defend criminally negligent homicide cases in trucking situations,
right?
And you're exactly right, because a smart plaintiff pushes both.
Right.
A smart plaintiff is going to be in touch with the DA's office or the prosecuting authority and say, push the ball on this deal, for the reason that, the defendant's typically going to put a priority or a premium out of staying in jail.
Right.
And so what happens in that instance is you do get a Fifth Amendment invocation. Even if you can ID him or for whatever reasons, you get that Fifth Amendment invocation through counsel, which will protect the client in a criminal case, but they ram it down his throat on the criminal case.
And like I was saying before, in at Reed Carter, we have a substantial defense practice, but we also have substantial plaintiffs' personal injury practice. So the flip side of that is when I'm handling some case for an injured individual, and we have someone who's on the other side who we know has a criminal problem. In many instances, we will say, look, we want that testimony. We want to present to the jury, because that's a powerful image at trial of someone who is accused of negligence or accused of wrongdoing, invoking their Fifth Amendment right. And it does influence people. It depends on the jurisdiction, but it does influence people.
Yeah. And we get called, sometimes, and one thing that, because I've got a civil background way back when, and doing criminal work, one of the things I've had to train myself about is that criminal lawyers don't think like civil lawyers, and civil lawyers don't necessarily think like criminal lawyers. And you know that because you've done both too.
Absolutely.
And so what will happen too is some people will come to me in the middle of civil litigation, and they'll be concerned about something going on. They'll be concerned that I'm worried that I'm going to get prosecuted over this. And sometimes when we go to a deposition and we start invoking the Fifth, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Because the other side may not appreciate or they may not know that, but then you're kind of telling them, hey, I'm really worried that I committed a crime here. And they're like, we don't care about that. We just want you to settle it.
Yeah. And the funny thing too is I don't think along those lines, I don't think a lot of civil lawyers really understand the Fifth Amendment exactly, because, like, for example, somebody will say, will you state your name, and then they'll take the Fifth Amendment. I'm like, well, you can't take the Fifth Amendment on that. I mean, I guess you can.
You could.
I guess you can, but at any rate, I think it's an interesting juxtapositioning of criminal and civil, which is one reason why I'm thankful for my background, is because I have had experience in both. So anytime I've been anywhere, whether it was at the firm you and I were at or where I'm at now, a lot of times that will come into play, and people will call and say, hey, or I'll talk to people in our office or whatever, and we'll say, well, this is what this means. What do I do here? And if I don't have the answer, I say, call Jeremy Rosenthal. Absolutely.
And pay him what he tells you.
And pay him what he tells you. That's right.
That's
right.
Good. That's
right.
cheering, not
That's
laughing.
Right. That's cheering. It's massive cheering.
Yes, massive cheering.
That's
yeah,
right.
because
That's
it's
right.
not funny. It's true.
It's true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the whole point of the lawyer show.
That's the point of the lawyer show.
Okay, so talk a little bit more about Reed Carter. Talk about because it's to start your own firm is risky, and to leave the comfort that you had is risky.
It is.
Talk about that.
First I would like to thank my wife, who is watching, hello, for her patience.
Yeah, more applause.
Because I will tell you, anybody, that's right, believe me. But anybody who's thinking about doing this and thinking about starting their own firm, you gotta have buy-in from, if you're married, you gotta have buy-in from the spouse or your significant other. It just doesn't work, because it is a team effort. This. And you gotta be prepared for the roller coaster. And you got to be prepared that there's going to be some months where things are really good and at the beginning, and then your goal is, as a friend of ours once said, the goal is to minimize the roller coaster, smooth out the roller coaster as much as you can.
Yeah.
It was I was very happy where I was, and very happy with the firm that we were at. But I wanted something more. I mean, I wanted to be my own boss, and so I started the current firm with my partner Chris Carter, and have never looked back. I will say that there have been some lessons along the way that we've learned. Roller coaster is one of them. I mean, it's hard to get prepared for it. The other one I've learned is get an accountant. Get an accountant, because I tried for like 2-3 years to do my own stuff, and man, I can't tell you how much time I wasted trying to figure that out. I am not an accountant. I'm not a math guy. And the other thing is just have a good strategy in place in terms of your marketing. Have a good strategy in place in terms of what you want to do business development wise. And sometimes it's good to just I don't want to say wing it, but just see how things go. And sometimes some business will fall into your lap, and it becomes a significant part of your business. So be flexible and nimble, as they say. But one of the things that I found after doing this for a little while is I also have recognized the fact that there are some things I don't know. One of the things they don't really teach you in law school is how to run a business. And I think there's sort of two, and maybe our generation.
They teach you how to run a photocopier at Baylor.
They do. At Tech, they did as well. Yeah. So, I'm old enough that I'm old enough that I remember that Westlaw was a novel and new idea. And now it's like, of course, nobody
they taught us how to shepherdize in the library.
Right. I got Lexis. Now I have Lexis just because I can shepherdize. I'm like, ooh, shepherdize. But the point is that
and we'll talk about shepherdizing in a second, because that's another thing.
Absolutely.
That probably the audience might need to.
Absolutely. But I think the other thing but like I said, I took a law office management course, and law school is a great course, but they don't really teach you how to run a business. And I think a lot of lawyers either don't. My experience is either reject the idea, not reject, but don't think of law as a business. And law is both a profession and a business. And so it's important to have your business hat and your legal professional hat. And so to the extent that if you're starting your own law firm, I've been telling people, get get yourself an accountant, accounting professional to do your books. Get a contact management and document management software or web-based program, and then just talk to people. Go and call people, and so I don't know if that answers whatever.
Well,
question
there's another. There's another document, or not document. There's a book that's out there. It's called How to Run and Manage a Law Firm. By a guy by the name of Jay Foonberg, and he's published by the American Bar Association.
Okay, all right.
And and he's got that's a tremendous read, and he's full of a lot of really helpful, a lot of really helpful information. To the point about the accounting, what I found when I'm talking to people who just leave the DA's office on the criminal side or want to open up a shop, I kind of tell them it's like snow that very, you go to bed and it's just kind of trickling, and
right.
Isn't that nice? And then you wake up in the morning and your house is completely covered.
That's right.
And it's just, if that's absolutely something somebody needs to have from the get-go to do that. But again, and your business model, see, in a criminal business model too, I can leave the DA's office and get hired the week after. In theory, in reality, it took a long time to get sea legs, but you have some instant cash. With y'all's firm doing plaintiff work and this type of defense work, it wasn't so easy. I'm guessing
it was yes and no. Yes and no. It was. There is at some point, and I've told people this, at some point you got to be 80% sure that this is what you want to do. The other 20%, I mean, you can't. Nobody's ever 100%. You got to be 80% sure, and you may not even have the business there. Although I did have some, right, and I had sources from where I could get business, and it may not have been enough initially to support a firm, but I knew it was going to come, and so I made that jump, but it involves a leap of faith, but also a not only a leap of faith, but also some confidence in your ability to do it. And the thing is that when you've been doing this, when I left, I've been doing it about 15 years or so, practicing law. And at that point, I developed enough contacts and enough friendships that I knew that enough lunches, I would probably get some business. And so, and I've been very blessed in that regard, because we have wonderful clients, and they, and especially on our personal injury practice, we help people, and then they will tell their folks, and when they have problems, they help us.
We got 1 minute left.
Yes.
So we need to turn this into infomercial time for Reed Carter.
All right.
Go.
All right. So Reed Carter is we're a litigation law firm. We do litigate. There's 3 lawyers. We have combined about 60 years worth of legal experience. We do plaintiff's personal injury, been involved in a car wreck, premises liability, any individual who's been hurt. And we also represent companies such as bars, nightclubs, trucking companies, those kinds of things. What's unique about us is that we have, in our plaintiff's personal injury practice, a insurance defense background. So we know how to talk to the insurance adjusters, and we know what their concerns are, and we can answer those. You know
where to kick them where it hurts the most.
Well, and I know also where to talk to them where it means the most, and that's a big thing, because I think a lot of people go in with the idea that the insurance adjusters are just trying to pull one over on you, and sometimes they are, but many times they're just people that want to get the information because they want to do. Maybe not necessarily what you think is the right thing, but at least in a way that's we can get it done. Yeah.
20 seconds. Sports predictions for Dallas-Fort Worth for the next 10 years.
The Jerry Jones's bionic body will still be in the suite.
Weekend at Bernie's.
No. He'll be bionic. He'll still be moving. The Texas Rangers will be on their fifth manager by the end of fifth. They'll go through 5 or 6 managers in that time period.
What about Luca?
Luca will win 2 titles, and then afterwards will run for president of the United States after we've amended the Constitution to allow foreign-born nationals to be elected president.
For Luca specifically.
For Luca, it'll be known as the Luca Amendment. That's right.
All right.
Yes.
This has been The Lawyer Show. I'm Jeremy Rosenthal, your lawyer. You can catch us from noon to 1 on Thursdays on the JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. Thank you, everybody.